What if children's innocence could triumph over government manipulation? Imagine students being interrogated about their loyalty and responding with wisdom beyond their years. This is the remarkable story of how Don Bosco students face down government intimidation with extraordinary grace and truth. The Miracles and Prophecies of St. John Bosco, a project of America Needs Fatima. I'm your host, Adrian Fonseca. Subscribe for new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Today, we'll witness an incredible moment in the history of Don Bosco's oratory, when government officials attempted to trap innocent students into condemning their faith and their country. In 1860, the Italian government, convinced that Catholic institutions were harboring anti-government conspiracies, launched a series of aggressive investigations. Their target? A simple school dedicated to helping poor boys. As we explore this inspiring incident, keep these themes in mind. The triumph of innocent wisdom over calculated manipulation, the importance of forming young minds in virtue, and how truth speaks clearly even through children's voices. And I have a question for you. When have you seen wisdom come from unexpected sources, particularly the young or the innocent? And before we begin, stay tuned to learn how you can participate in preserving and spreading Don Bosco's legacy of education and faith. The link is in the description box down below, but first, let's dive into this remarkable story. In 1860, Italy was in political turmoil. The government, deeply suspicious of Catholic institutions, had convinced itself that religious organizations were centers of conspiracy against the state. They were particularly fixated on Don Bosco's oratory in Turin, believing it was using its charitable works as a cover for anti-government activities. They suspected that behind the scenes of feeding and educating poor boys, Don Bosco was secretly receiving vast sums of money from the Pope and dispossessed princes to recruit soldiers and promote rebellion. This paranoia led the Minister of the Interior to order aggressive house searches throughout Turin. The anti-Catholic press fueled these suspicions by spreading false rumors that a search of the local Jesuits had uncovered a huge sums of money and documents revealing a vast conspiracy. In June, 3 officials invaded the peace of the oratory and turned the boys' day into a grand inquisition. Let's see who put who on the spot. Don Bosco stayed with the officials for over half an hour. After they attempted to trap him into contradicting Father Arosonati's statements, Don Bosco thoroughly briefed them on the oratory's financial situation. They should have been convinced that the oratory possessed and posed no threat to the government. But they weren't. So they shifted their tactics to a more insidious approach, attempting to target the students themselves. Anyway, one inquisitor asked, "What do you think of the recent annexation of the papal provinces to Piedmont?" Raising his voice, Don Bosco firmly replied, "As a citizen, I am ready to defend my country with my life. But as a Christian and a priest, I shall never approve of that." Charles Givarillo, who was in the next room, distinctly heard his words. Then, hoping to find something to boast of to their superiors, the searchers asked to visit the classrooms. Don Bosco consented. We must remark that the lead inquisitor, Chevalier Gatti, didn't know Latin and Greek. Since his teaching experience had been limited to history and geography, his questions were confined to these subjects, but were purposefully slanted and sly. The inquisitors seemed to be trying to elicit answers, or discover some phrase in the boys' compositions that could be construed as critical of the king or the government. Don Bosco would then be accused of giving his boys an education that was dangerous to the state. They checked all the books and asked for Don Bosco's teaching on the Constitution, the army, and Italy. Even the catechism served them well for the strangest and trickiest questions. They wanted to find out what ideas were being instilled into the boys' mind in order to trick them into giving answers that could compromise the oratory. Latin 1 was being taught by a young cleric, Chevalier Gatti, while questioning a pupil named Ricciardi on Italy's frontiers, asked, "How many kinds of monarchical governments are there?" "Two," the boy replied, "absolute and moderate or constitutional." "Which is the better of the two?" The pupil did not know how to answer a question beyond what he had been taught. Gotti realized it, and as though hoping for an answer critical of constitutional government, prompted, "Don't you think that an absolute monarchy, in which a king does what he pleases, is better?" At this suggestion, the teacher felt that he had to point out that this was no question to ask a first-year Latin student. "This question," he remarked, "would be hard even for a mature politician." But the pupil, as if prompted by an angel, replied, "I would say that any form of government is good, provided that those that are on top are good people." This very sharp answer dumbfounded Gotti and gave the oratory staff and students something to talk about for many days. The visitors then asked the teacher if he was certified. He was not. They took his name down and used this as pretext for continuing their classroom investigation. The most subtle questions were asked in Latin 4 and 5, taught by Jean Baptiste Francisia. Chevalier Gatti asked a pupil, "What class do you belong to?" "Latin 5, sir." "Have you studied Roman history?" "Yes, sir, but only the part in our program." "Can you tell me who killed Julius Caesar?" "Marcus, Janus, Brutus, and other conspirators." "Brutus certainly did the right thing in slaying that tyrant, didn't he?" "Brutus did wrong. A subject ought never to rebel against his sovereign, much less take his life." "And what if the sovereign is bad? Then God will judge and punish him, but his subjects must still respect him. Tell me, don't you think it would be a good idea if someone would take a shot at the king? Then monks, nuns, priests, and bishops, and the Pope would have peace." "Sir," Father Alessanazzi interrupted, "these are no questions to ask young pupils. You are trying to trap them. I'll have to forbid them to answer." Ignoring the protest, the inquisitor insisted the child answer his absurd question. "No, sir," the boy replied. "That would be wrong. If a king does wrong, he will have to render an account to God in due time. But his subjects cannot in conscience harm him. Rather, they should pray that the Lord will show mercy, touch his heart, and convert him. Meanwhile, they must be patient." The wisdom of Don Bosco's students reminds us of the power of proper formation and faith and virtue. What if you could help preserve and spread this transformative legacy? Step into St. John Bosco's world. Our monthly promoters don't just learn about Don Bosco, they live his legacy. Picture your home adorned with inspiring images, your mind enriched by his writings, and your spirit uplifted by our communal prayers. From daily rosaries to exclusive books, you'll have everything you need to walk in Don Bosco's footsteps. Become a monthly promoter now, and let's bring his miracles and prophecies to life in your world. The link is in the description box down below to sign up today. Today's story showcases the extraordinary impact of Don Bosco's education on his students. When faced with manipulative questioning designed to trap them, these young boys demonstrated remarkable wisdom and virtue. Their responses, particularly about praying for leaders rather than hating them, offers timeless wisdom for our own era. The same principles apply today when we face challenges to our faith and values. Like Don Bosco students, we are called to respond with wisdom and grace, remembering that prayer and patience are more powerful than rebellion. Their example reminds us that true education forms not just the mind, but also the heart and soul. But what aspects of the students' responses impressed you the most? Share your thoughts in the comment section down below. I would love to hear from you, and I'm sure other people will as well. Thank you for joining me today. St. John Bosco, pray for us. May God bless you, and Mary Immaculate keep you under her mantle. God love you.